Up, Alabama? Good morning. I'm gonna try to make Mondays a little bit more exciting for you. We're bringing some really awesome wines from around France, actually. Tasting a couple of the 15s from the two from the Sauvignon Blancs from the Loire Valley, which we talked about Muscadet over the weekend, being one of those wines in that wine part of the world, and then also a Pinot Noir from Burgundy. Love Burgundy. There's so many different expressions just within. There's a famous stretch of land from north to south in Burgundy called the Côte d'Or. We're going to talk a little bit more about those different regions in another video. But as for today, we're going to be tasting one of the most northern. It's actually known as kind of the Golden Gate to the Côte d'Or. Is Marsanne, which is going to be the farthest north. And just kind of talk about these wines. We have them all open, so we're going to taste through all these. I'll be able to tell you a little bit of the taste profile on these. But just to talk a little bit about this first producer. So the appellation is called Quincy. This is actually about 2.5 hours. It's really close to Sancerre. It's Sauvignon Blanc, so same grape varietal as Sancerre. And they produce a little bit of red wine too, but they're really known for their Sauvignon Blanc. Great kind of limestone soul here. Very, tends to be bright, really acidic. Flavors you can look for out of Sancerre is like kiwi. From the Loire Valley is like kiwi, a little bit of fresh cut grass. You start thinking about those different types of flavor profiles, and it brings you a little bit more into idea of what you're expecting to taste out of these wines. What's cool about this is a winery that goes back to like the 19th century. This wine's been in their family, and they're poured at a really well-known restaurant in France. That the importer here went and tasted with, and they typically do blends of all their vineyard sites. So basically, they'll take vines that they planted, I don't know, like 10 years ago. So they're younger vines, and then they've got this other part of their vineyard that has vines that are like 80 years old. And so what they'll do is they'll collect all that fruit, and they'll vinify it, or they'll basically ferment that wine separately, and then they'll blend from these different tanks that they put. They're using stainless steel tanks for these wines. It's there to protect the expression and the brightness of the wine. So they're going to take those and they're going to basically blend the different aged vines together to produce a bottle. But the importer was actually over there eating at the restaurant and speaking with the winemaker, and he said, I really, for the American market, I really want to do something that's an older expression. Would you sell me just the old vines? Would you bottle one for me? And so this is really cool for the United States to have, and also Alabama to have, because this is all from 50 to 80-year-old vines, which just gives a lot more kind of characteristics and depth to the wine. So we're going to taste this. And this is a really small estate. They do about 10,000 cases a year for Domaine Mordaunt. And it is their cellar is literally beneath their house. This is not, it's a large cellar. They have, several, probably maybe 10 different fermentation tanks. So I mean, it's not tiny, but it's not what you would think when you're thinking like a warehouse full of, all these different tanks and things. So it's a really small producer, which I always tend to like. I think that it provides a little bit more, I don't know, just something kind of fun, more intimacy in the wines. This wine's waking up a little bit this morning. As wines start to come to, as they start warming up a little bit, if you had them in the fridge overnight, which I did, they're a little muted. The warmer wine gets to room temperature, the closer it gets to room temperature, the more it starts showing the fruit. And And honestly, if there's any flaws in the wine, it'll start showing that too. So it's got kind of a nice little golden. There's a lot of, they talk about the sight, the smell, and the finish of the wine. So there's a little bit more texture to this wine. There's a lot of kind of like melon fruit, a little bit of that kind of grassiness to the wine, but it's really got a lot of depth and character. It's got kind of, I would say, medium acidity to the wine. It's medium to medium high acidity. It's not like blowing my mouth out, but it's really pleasant. I like the kind of fruit that I'm getting off of this wine. It's definitely making my mouth water. So that's a good sign of this wine. Yeah, kind of a nice mixture of maybe a melon type fruit, like a honeydew melon, kind of orange citrus notes to this. Really pleasant. So that would be a wine that would go great with a lot of your, maybe like a meatier type fish. So when I say meat, more fat that's in the fish, and you can always see that. If you go to a fish market and you see a lot of white layers in between the meat, that's a fattier style fish. So like your salmon tends to be a little bit, certain salmons tend to be a little bit, have a little bit more fat on them. And so those are always great to kind of, as that fat renders in the fish, it kind of gives it a creamier taste profile. I would love to have something like that with this wine. It's really killer. So another wine, this is Claude Rousseau is the name of the label. Again, this is 2015 vintage. Claude Rousseau is a wine that comes to Birmingham. There's a limited availability. It's really popular, and so it's usually here for a couple of months, and then it's typically sold out. So this is one you definitely want to jump in on. To jump back real quick, price on this guy is going to be around $21 if you found it at a retail store, and probably going to be around roughly $60 on by the bottle on a menu. So just kind of give you an idea here. This is a Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre. So Sauvignon Blanc is the grape, Sancerre is the region in the Loire Valley. This is Claude Rousseau. This is a 5th generation winery, and the current winemaker is Stéphane. So Stéphane is making the wine and taking care of the vineyard now. This is on limestone, but it's coming from some old vines again, which gives the finish of the wine a little bit more weight to the wine. So it's has a little bit more, not necessarily creamy, but a little bit heavier texture to the Sancerre. It's still going to have a lot of that brightness, still going to have a lot of that expression from the Sauvignon Blanc. But really cool wines. Now this is also, these guys are not certified organic, but they do organic practices. What I mean by that is that there's actually, to be considered certified organic is basically it's a very expensive process where you have to have someone come out and approve you as certified. So what a lot of winemakers are doing, they're practicing certified, or they're practicing organic practices, but they're not actually paying the fees, which end up coming out of your pocket, because anytime that they're having to pay these extraordinary fees for being certified organic, they have to put that in their price model. So that's why a lot of winemakers, they do it, but they don't go through the expense of trying to get accredited for it. So, anyways, Stefan is actually doing this. His father didn't do it as much. His father used a lot of pesticides and herbicides to take care of the vineyard. And Stefan is actually using more natural ways to deter pests and rodents and things of that nature from getting into rabbits and things like that from chewing on the leaves, chewing on the vines and the fruit and all that. So, anyways, I'm gonna get into the taste here. So this is always a favorite of mine. This is the Le Boucade label from them. So this is on limestone soil. So this has got a lot more on the nose than this particular one here. This had a little bit more depth of minerality. This has a lot of kind of white flowers, dogwood tree, kind of things like that. Dogwood trees are pretty, pretty spread out over Alabama, so you could probably get an idea of what that smells like. There is a lot of minerality here. You get a lot of that limestone, Sancerre, and parts throughout the Loire Valley actually, and then Champagne is really well known for its limestone soils, which end up giving a lot of, it's very healthy for the vines. So a lot more acidity on this wine, very bright, but definitely I can see the weight that they're talking about with this wine. More kind of white skin fruit, so you can think of things like pears or green apples. These always make me think of like a citrus salad, just that bright punch on of zest on the front palate. But the mid palate is all this awesome, super ripe fruit. Really a delicious wine. I'm excited that we get to work with this. So and every year I'm excited to see it starts to hit restaurant menus. This bottle is going to be around $26.99 if you go into a retail store. It's probably going to be a little bit closer to $70-$75 on a wine list, but really delicious. If you come across a wine list that's glass in this, that's awesome. This is a really killer wine. So we're on a good track so far. Also, the last wine that we're going to talk about this morning is this Pinot Noir from Marsanne. This is a great time to point out, as you see Marsanne on the label, that is not the name of the grape, it's the name of the appellation. So we see in France, because there's so many different expressions of Pinot Noir, of Sauvignon Blanc, of Chardonnay, what the French like to do is they like to put the designation from where the wine is coming from. The appellation is the largest part of the label. So Sancerre is the largest part here, Quincy is the largest part here. They're telling you where the wine is coming from. The reason they do that is because, especially as we talk about other Pinot Noir throughout different appellations and Burgundy, and especially the Côte d'Or, there's so many different styles. The Pinot Noir does not taste the same throughout the entire Côte d'Or. So what they're doing is they're identifying the profile and the expectations of this appellation on the wine first, and then they're going to share with you the producer, which is typically located at the bottom of the label. And then also, this is a single vineyard, so Cuvée Marie Ragueneau. This is talking about this is a single vineyard site, Pinot Noir. I'm going to back up before I talk about this producer, Charles Drouin, or this winery. I want to back up because Marsanne's got a really interesting story. Marsanne was not pre-1987 was not considered its own appellation. It was really kind of being so far north in the Côte d'Ivoire. The farthest point of the farthest larger appellation of the Côte d'Ivoire is the Côte de Nuits, and that's Nuits. And so Marcenais was like, well, recognize us as our own particular appellation. So it's just like you have Gevrey-Chambertin, you have let's see, down in the Mayonnaise and let's go a little bit farther south to Beaujolais. You have like Morgon. You've seen those labels a lot. All those are single appellation or sub-appellations that exist within the Côte d'Ivoire. And so they were saying, well, give us our own identity. We produce very unique wines in the Côte d'Ivoire. And basically the council was like, no, we're not gonna. You're not very large. There's about 6,000 people that live in Marcenais, and so they're like, well, we're not gonna give you your own title. And they're like, well, make us part of the Côte de Nuits then. And they said, no, you're not really a Côte de Nuits. So there was actually a legal struggle over identifying this. And what really kicked it off was Rosé. Rosé from Marcenais is incredible. It really gained a lot of popularity, and so finally they got their own representation within the Côte d'Ivoire as Marcenais. So the struggle was real. What's really cool is this producer before like 1970 was producing their own wine at Marcenais before it was even an appellation. So that gives a little bit of kind of nice romantic story behind the winery. It's a fifth generation winery. The current winemaker is Cyril Audouin. Cyril is part of this. There's a lot of new winemakers that are basically inheriting their parents' vineyards. So it's an exciting time for Burgundy as all these young, ambitious winemakers are coming into their wineries. So Cyril is the new one, and he really embodies both the ideal of Marcenais as well as the ideal of this new young generation. So this is good. This has been one of my favorite Pinot Noirs out of the Côte d'Ivoire. My personal taste is a little bit more, I love the more nuanced, more earthy, rustic style, old world style, but I really enjoy this more fruit driven wine from Marcenais. The Rosé's killer, and then they also do a Chardonnay as well. So anyways, that's kind of the fun story behind these guys. We're going to taste through this wine. So Burgundy is always one of those, if you're in a wine store and there is a wine salesperson on the floor, Burgundy is always one I like to recommend that you kind of tell them what you like about a Pinot Noir and ask them to help you pick out something in Burgundy. Hopefully these videos will give you a little bit better idea of what a Pinot Noir from different places in the Côte d'Ivoire tastes like, but you can find very, very different expressions of Pinot Noir. So there's a lot of going on the nose for this wine. It's very bright cherry kind of fruit. There's definitely that earthy, and when I talk about earth, if you ever walk into like a florist shop and there's a lot of it's what you're smelling is that potting soil, but you smell that kind of rich, thick earth, dirt type smell. That's what I mean when I talk about earthiness in wine. So you get a lot of that. There's this iron richness, minerality to the wine. Now, there's a lot more firm tannins to this wine, so my mouth is really kind of puckering as we talked about with our wine shebang yesterday or this weekend. But it's got such great kind of medium acid fruit on this scale. It's got some really nice, really making my mouth water. while at the same time those tannins are really working. So this is definitely more of a heavy pork dish and up on the meat scale, but really awesome dark cherries. But I'm getting like a strawberry complement to that as well. Yeah, this is a new vintage since the last one I tasted. This is a 2013, and so we it is just as great as I've always loved it. So this particular one is going to be probably a little bit closer to $37 to $38 at your retailer, and probably going to be a little closer to $90, $95 on the wine list. So this is a lot of fun in France. A lot of there's between these two Sancerres, there's a big difference in the way that they come across, and I hope that you got that from this video. This is a very rich, ripe expression of Pinot Noir from the Côte d'Or, which I find very exciting. This has always been a favorite wine of mine. And anyways, so well, thanks so much for checking out the video. You can find us at thewinelistblog.wordpress.com. You can also find me on Instagram its handle is @thewinelist. So you can check that out and see some cool things that I'm drinking. And anyways, thanks for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed.